Hey guys, welcome back to another tier list. So today, as you can see, we'll be ranking and talking a bit about the films of Robert Zemeckis. So he's a very cool director. I've always liked him. There's a handful of his movies that are some of my favorites that we'll get into. And he's made a lot of just very decent, good films, as well as a few that I'm not a fan of. So he's made quite a few movies. He's got a new one coming out in a couple months' time. Another one with Tom Hanks called Here, which I'm pretty excited to see. But as it goes, I've seen all of his feature films to date that have been released. A couple of them I haven't seen for a long time. I've only seen once off, so those ones I probably need to rewatch before actually ranking them. But I'll let you know when we get to them. So they're in no particular order, so we'll just get kicked off with Allied. So this is the more recent one from around 2016, starring Brad Pitt and Marion Cotillard, and it's kind of like an espionage spy thriller, as well as a romantic drama film, and it's actually pretty good. I think it's one of his better, more recent films. It's not great or anything, but it's certainly not bad. It's definitely more of a B tier film though. I do own it on Blu-ray, and I do like the film quite a bit. It's got another really great musical score from Alan Silvestri, who's done pretty much all of the music in Robert Zemeckis' films since *Romancing the Stone*, I think. So pretty much the beginning, close to the beginning of his career. But yeah, this is probably my favorite recent um, Zemeckis film that he's done in, yeah, out of his last three or four or five films. So it is pretty good. Next, we get the classics, Back to the Future trilogy. The first one is a clear S tier film. It's one of the great 80s movies. It has a fantastic concept, great music, great cast, iconic characters like Marty and Doc and Biff and all that. Great music from Alan Silvestri again. Just an all-round classic 80s film, and it's easily my favorite of the trilogy. I think George McFly is a great character as well. He unfortunately wasn't in any of the sequels. Crispin Glover, I think, played him. But yeah, that first movie was excellent. The second one is not quite as good, but it's very close. I'm going to put it in the A tier. I really like it still. It's just not quite as good as the original. You don't have George McFly. You don't spend as much time in the future as I probably would like. It's a bit more convoluted than the first film, but it's still a great film. And it's as good of a sequel as I think you could get to that first film. Part 3 is still a good movie, but I'm going to put it in the B tier. It's definitely not as good as the first two films, but it's still a very fun and enjoyable movie, and it takes things in a different direction by taking you to the Old West, which is really cool to see. Beowulf is probably one of my least favorite Zemeckis films. I'll put it in the F tier because it's one of the ones I've only seen once and it was a long time ago. I remember not liking it at all, so there's not really much I can say about it because it was a long time ago and I'm not a fan of the film. It just felt very dull and lifeless and boring from what I remember. And I've never really felt the need to return to it, so there's nothing I can really say to redeem it at all that would lift it above the F tier for me, unfortunately, but that's where that one's going to sit. Next, we have one of his best films, and that's Castaway. I really love this film. It's another S tier movie for me. A very quiet film. There's not much dialogue, there's not much music either, but when there is, it's significant and it makes more impact than it should because it's very lacking in that aspect, but that's not a negative on the film. It's just the way that the film's made because we're focusing on one character on a deserted island and that. And it's a really great film. It's kind of heartbreaking as well. It's also kind of just relaxing to watch in a way because you're watching this guy just trying to figure things out and survive by himself on this island. Played excellently by Tom Hanks again. In one of his great performances where he was able to lose a lot of weight for the first half of the film, then gain a lot of weight for the second half of the film. Oh, sorry, reverse that. He was overweight in the first half of the film and then lost it all for the second half of the film while he's on the island. But an excellent movie overall. Next, we have Contact. This is another one like Beowulf that I've only seen once and it was a long time ago. And it's one that I was actually trying to get around to watching again before doing this video, but I still haven't. Um, because I think my opinion would probably change on it as I saw it when I was quite young. And I still remember thinking it was good. I think I would put it in the B tier, but I would possibly put it higher after rewatching it. So it's still one that I plan on watching again. As I said, it was a long time ago, but I do remember thinking it was good, but not great. But I was like 12 or 13 when I saw it, so I think I would like it more watching it as an adult. But yeah, Jodie Foster's a great actress. Matthew McConaughey is a great actor. This is kind of before he was a big actor. But yeah, I'm keen to check it out again. Death Becomes Her is another film I think it's pretty underrated. I'm going to put it in the B tier because I like the film quite a bit. It's silly and over the top. It definitely throws a lot of visual effects and tricks at you. That's quite fun to play with and watch. Meryl Streep and Goldie Hawn do great, but Bruce Willis is definitely the standout for me because he's usually this tough guy. Usually always has that tough guy persona, like what's the Last Boy Scout or Die Hard, that kind of film. But he's a real kind of geeky nerd in this movie, and he plays the part really well. And I really enjoy watching the movie for his performance. It's a good time. I have it on Blu-ray. It's definitely a solid B tier film. Christmas Carol is another motion capture film like Beowulf, but I like it considerably more. I'm actually going to put it in the A tier because I really like the two Christmas films that he did. Christmas Carol is great. I try to watch it every year around Christmas time. Great performance from Jim Carrey in the motion capture stuff, and yeah, I think I like these films more than most people seem to give them credit for. Flight's another one that I enjoy, probably top of the B tier. Haven't watched it for a while, but I really like Denzel Washington's performance in it. I like the flight scene itself, where the plane crashes upside down. It's really cool. Um, really tense sequence, but then the rest of the film throughout is just filled with great acting and performances and dialogue and courtroom scenes and things like that. So I do think it's a solid film and one of his better, more recent films. Forrest Gump is obviously one of the greatest films of all time. I'm going to put that at the very top of the S tier. Most people would probably say Back to the Future is his best film, but I would actually put Forrest Gump just a bit above Back to the Future personally. Tom Hanks being like my favorite actor, giving one of his best performances here that seems really bizarre and over the top, but it really works for the film. And he got the Academy Award for it and everything. But what this film does really well is it meshes so many different genres together. Like it's a drama film overall, but it's also a romantic film. It's a Vietnam War film. It's like an adventure film. It's pretty much everything just combined, and it really actually works the whole way through. Like it's a perfect film. I'd say that those three S tier films are pretty much perfect movies, in my opinion. Next, we have his first film, I Want to Hold Your Hand, and this is another one that I, like Beowulf, I wasn't interested in at all. I watched it once, and I've never felt like watching it again. It's about the Beatles craze in the 60s, and I've never been into the Beatles much, but besides that, the film just wasn't very interesting, I didn't think. It was just a lot of teenage girls screaming with excitement about the Beatles, and yeah, I mean, it was his first movie. It was well made, I guess, but I just didn't feel anything for it, didn't get into it at all. So it's an F tier film for me. Yeah, I've never felt like rewatching it, or I barely even remember anything about it to be honest, just because of how forgettable it kind of was for me when I watched it. Romancing the Stone's one of his early films from 1984. It came out just before he got big with Back to the Future, but I really like this film. It's a solid A tier film for me. I'm gonna put it up there. Kind of like an Indiana Jones knockoff, I guess, but more of a romantic adventure film than an action adventure film. Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner are great together here. They are really at the peak of their careers, I guess. Well, I mean, Michael Douglas went on to make great films throughout the 80s and the 90s. But yeah, it's a really good movie, really fun, really kind of a light-hearted adventure film. Kind of like a romance novel because the character in it is a romance novelist. But really good. I really enjoy the film. I love the setting of South America as well. The Polar Express. So this is the other Christmas movie he did in stop motion, and this is a great film. I love this movie more than most people. I'll put it at the top of the A tier. I used to hate it when I was younger, but then one Christmas Eve I watched it on TV, and just for some reason it clicked with me, and I try to watch it every Christmas Eve. I just think it's a fantastic movie. It's well made, and it really captures this kind of spirit of Christmas feel that a lot of movies try to get. It is a bit weird looking, I guess, with some of the early motion capture work. You know, this movie being 20 years old now, but it really was ahead of its time in a lot of ways as well, and they're able to do a lot of things that you can't do, obviously, with live action. So that was cool, and I love the music in it. Tom Hanks played so many characters in the film, which is cool to see. And yeah, I've always been a defender of the film since that time when it finally clicked for me, and I just started really liking the movie. So next up we have The Walk from 2015. This is another good recent film that he did, another one that I'll probably put high up in the B tier. Great visuals, just showing this true story of this guy who had nerves of steel pretty much, was fearless and like did these high wire acts between the buildings and stuff. And ending up doing them between the Twin Towers and that back in I think it was the 70s. And yeah, it's a really cool movie. Interesting story, interesting characters, and if you have a fear of heights, like watching it might be a bit freaky. I went to see it at the movies with my dad when it came out, and he hates watching people at heights, and so that was kind of a fun experience to watch him watch the film. But it is a good movie. The Witches is a recent one that I wasn't a huge fan of. I'll put it in the C tier because it wasn't bad, I don't think. A lot of people hate the movie. I didn't think it was that bad. I thought it was entertaining enough, but there was nothing super unique about it that stood out to me either. Um, yeah, interesting performances from Anne Hathaway. It's kind of a kids movie, but a bit scarier than your typical kids movie, which I like as well. But yeah, it didn't do anything that was super original or unique that, has made me feel like watching it again. Used Cars is his second film from 1980. I actually recently rewatched this because I haven't seen it in a long time, and it's quite a funny movie. I think it's definitely another solid B film. Um, an early performance from Kurt Russell, who's really funny in the movie. Definitely a lot of just slapsticky kind of boyish humor, but it's really fun, and I really like the third act when they're racing all the cars back to the back to the car lot. It's quite a funny movie and quite over the top. Definitely a product of its time, though, being from 1980, really has that feel to it. But yeah, really good second film from Zemeckis. As I said, I didn't like his first movie, but from his second film onwards, he was pretty much on the ball. And yeah, Used Cars is quite a funny movie. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen that one. Welcome to Marwen is another recent one. A lot of people don't like this one, but I didn't think it was awful. Uh, I'll put it in the C tier, but above The Witches. I remember like watching it, expecting it to be trash because everyone was saying how bad it was, but I didn't hate the film. I just thought it was okay. Steve Carell was good. Obviously, they go back and use it's a mix between mostly live action, but a little bit of stop motion as well. So it was interesting seeing them kind of mesh that together. But yeah, overall, it was just kind of forgettable and a bit average. But next up, we have What Lies Beneath. So this film actually came out in the middle of when they were shooting Castaway. So they needed that gap of time so Tom Hanks could go away and lose all the weight for the second half of the film. And while he was doing that, Robert Zemeckis actually made a whole other movie, which was this thriller film, psychological thriller, What Lies Beneath, which kind of feels a bit Hitchcockian. It has a great eerie musical score to it and a really cool performance from Harrison Ford, who plays a villain in the film, which is kind of against type for him. But it's a really good movie, and I like it a lot more than most people, I think. It's definitely a film I'd probably put up in the A tier even. It's one that I really want to come out on Blu-ray. I think it has a Blu-ray release in the US, but it's like region locked. So I'd really like them to bring that movie out in Australia or the UK where I'm able to get it. Um, I definitely think I like it more than most people seem to. He doesn't really do thrillers or, you know, psychological horror films like this that much at all, really. So it was really cool to see one and one that was done really well. So I would highly recommend that film. Michelle Pfeiffer's in it, and she's really good too. But yeah, overall, it's a really solid film. Definitely one of his better ones, in my opinion. So next up, we have another classic from the 80s, and it's Who Framed Roger Rabbit. A lot of people love this movie. A lot of people would probably put it in like his top five films, but for me personally, I'm actually not a big fan of, of the film. I'll put it in the B tier, but at the bottom. I've got it on Blu-ray, and every now and then I return to it, but I admire it for what it does by mixing live action and cartoon together, and it does it really seamlessly, especially for a film that came out in 1988. It's really clever, and I really like that aspect of the film, and like I like watching it for that. But I don't like the characters. I don't like the story. I know they're going for a film noir style thing, but it just didn't really work for me. Every time I watch it, I try, okay, it's hopefully gonna click with me this time, but it just never does. And like I said, I really appreciate the visual side of the film, what they're able to do, integrating that cartoon into reality. But the film just doesn't work for me as a movie overall, which is unfortunate. But I don't think I can put it below the B tier just because of how iconic it is and because of how cool the film actually just looks. So I'm going to put it at the bottom of the B tier just for that. And lastly, we have Pinocchio, the most recent film that he released back in 2022, and easily one of his weakest films. I'm going to put it in the D tier because it's worse than all these movies, but I think it might slightly be better than these two. I don't know. I remember watching it and just like it's another one that everyone trashed when it came out, and I thought, yeah, it's another live action Disney film. I'm not really into them. And this one doesn't really work either. Like even with Tom Hanks in the lead role, like the visuals are there, they look cool and things like that, but there's nothing unique or original about the movie that kind of adds to it. Like I don't understand all these live action remakes of Disney films because they're not adding anything new to the movies that are improving them. They're only making them worse and making people want to, watch the original films. And that's another one. This is another one that's done that for me. So yeah, unfortunately, it's a pretty average movie, and down the bottom of the barrel there. So that's all of the released films of Robert Zemeckis so far, guys. As I said, he's got a new one coming out in a couple months' time, which I'm really keen to see. It looks good because he's kind of returning to a more basic, simple storytelling aspect, and we've got Tom Hanks back in the lead role too, as well as Robin Wright, who starred with him in Forrest Gump, and I think it's written by the same guy too, possibly. So I'm pretty keen to see that, and hopefully it will be one of his better films. But yeah, definitely, guys, if you haven't seen any of these S or A or B tier films, check them out. I wouldn't really bother with anything in the C tier or below. But he's a great director. He's made so many movies. He's been around making great films since the early 80s. So yeah, definitely check out some of these movies, guys, if you haven't seen them. And please subscribe to my channel and comment below if you have any questions. And hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Bye.